Hello, you're watching This Week in FM. Tuesday the 19th of November saw M Restaurant in Threadneedle Street in London host Reconomy's Don't Waste It breakfast roundtable, which is aimed at the supply chain. The theme of the roundtable is around waste management, looking at delivering value and efficiency in a constantly changing market. We will be joining the roundtable for their fourth and final session, which is focused on adding value to the triple bottom line. This requires collaborating, engaging and communicating with stakeholders to achieve sustainability across facilities and building a robust portfolio that demonstrates financial, environmental and social success. The previous 3 sessions are available on the ThisWeekinFM website and our YouTube channel. The first session looked at meeting changing customer demands and expectations for managing waste and wastage. The second on changing the way waste is managed to improve efficiency, and the previous session on applying a different measure and using technology to improve efficiency. Attendees, led by the founder and custodian of the Planet Mark, Steve Malkin, are effectively voicing their opinions and discussing real practical solutions. We head now to the fourth and final session of this roundtable.
So session 4 is about adding value to the triple bottom line and how we're going to make changes to the waste and recycling sector that are going to deliver great value over this next 10 years, which is sort of known as this decade of action. So what are we going to transform? What are the changes we want to see within and we're going to frame this in this triple bottom line, which is balancing our financial, our economic needs, our environmental needs, and our social needs. And there's a big piece around here about social value, isn't there? Because we can measure social value now.
Finally, we're in a position where the triple bottom line, we can absolutely account for every aspect of it, the social, the financial and the environmental. The crucial thing that we've seen is, and actually supporting SMEs. So SMEs are typically community interest companies, and they are reaching hard to reach people, disadvantaged people, so people who've had the pleasure of Her Majesty and they've actually come out through that, they want to progress to a job. So these organisations, and waste is actually part of, I think, what they call the New Green Deal. So it's actually this extra industry that is going to grow because we want to reuse more, we want to recycle more, and we've made these horrible machines that are made of multiple components, and we need people who actually can take the time to dismantle. So these hard to reach people are employed with the sole ambition of actually breaking it down and getting the value from the material, breaking the materials down to plastic, the glass, the metals, all the different components, debunking a hazardous or a waste electronic and electrical equipment down to its constituent parts that then can be moved up the hierarchy and recycled. So why wouldn't we want to help people out of poverty, give them a nice life, improve our recycling, and actually save our bottom line because we're getting rebates from these fantastic organisations?
So this is that's a wonderful way of demonstrating how this industry in this sector, the waste and recycling sector, the waste management sector, can actually contribute directly to society.
And yeah, you must look up the Preston model, not for this time, but actually in the time of recession, Preston, by investing and only looking after its own people, own organisations, SMEs, put the money back into that, and they were absolutely thriving in the depth of a recession.
So we'll find that link and we're going to share it after this session. So the Preston model we'll look for. So I'm going to ask you then, as this representatives of this sector, given the fact we're now launching into this new decade, we have shown that there's different ways of working. What are the things that you would like to see happen to make big changes and drive sustainability through the sector? Where would we start? Who wants to launch us into that?
Well, I don't want to hold forth for too long, but our financial lenders and all our clients are accountable to these guys. They are using tools to determine the sustainability of their portfolio, and social, financial, environmental policies, all of these things form part of these tools, and GRESB is a global real estate sustainability benchmarking tool, hell of a mouthful, but that is an example. You've got the Higg Index for the apparel industry, you've got M&S's Silver Factories, you've got CDP, Climate, what does it stand for? That one, please.
Disclosure Project.
Thank you, that's the one.
Yeah.
Companies are asked to report on that, so it's demonstrating that you can be accountable.
Great. So companies are reporting, and they've got to report, and that's only going to get more, isn't it, as we go to zero carbon? What things can we do?
I think we've got to make sure there's an element of trust in this. We're all saying the right things. Come up with the gold standard of how to report. Lots of different areas, different industries. That's all great, and it should almost be on the front page of every single company's annual reports, every advert that you put out there, and our sustainability level is X. We're not there yet, but we're trying. Whatever the
Honesty.
I'm
is absolutely.
not a slogan writer, but clearly, you know what? Somebody put it out there. Coca-Cola are now turning around and saying we're taking, single-use plastic out of our supply chain. We're not going to provide it anymore. It's all going to be glass. Everyone around this room, anyone who has a company across the world, not just in the UK, needs to be able to have that same thing. Gold standard. This is where we are. This is how we're going to get there.
So you would like to see, I like that, Keith. So we're going to have more transparent and trusted reporting
Absolutely.
from any size of organisation in their supply chain. I'm going to point to you, Steve, because I liked what you said earlier about helping organisations connect to deliver a better service. Would that be at the top of your list of what we could do as a sector?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's there's a from the bottom to the top to the bottom approach on this. So when we spoke about earlier on bin diving, waste composition analysis, there must be some standard industry waste compositions that you say, okay, if you're in an office, you've got this sort of standard of waste that's coming through, manufacturing, etc. And you'll have different gold standards across different industries. So, to achieve 100% diversion from landfill in one industry may be impossible for another. And it could be using composting units, etc. And I think being able to educate from the top and thinking about not just the end users, the manufacturers. So if we was to say like the IBMs of this producing computer equipment down through to the recyclers of we, and also it's like the toy manufacturers, Coke manufacturers, how would you educate them to take the waste out of the system to begin with, or to come up with the best possible material to use? And that flows all the way down to different service providers, from the caterers to the cleaners, to the people that take the waste away, to the right manufacturing plants in terms of alternatives to landfill. I think if you're able to connect all of them, which is, it's the utopia. The utopia is zero waste. We shouldn't even be here, really. We shouldn't even be talking about waste. But you're never going to get to that point.
No.
But educating every single person from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, getting them all connected. And I know we spoke about RFPs earlier and a race to the bottom line in terms of the price. If you're able to get in front of the client, to educate them in the right way and say, this is how you should treat waste, a waste education program, it almost takes that off the table, because you're creating a different value that the client never really spoke about before. You're making them conscious of their impact upon the environment, sustainability, the social element of it, and it just all pulls together really, really well.
I mean, imagine if there was a global index that actually named and shamed all to the same standard.
Yeah.
And that is what the Zero Waste Index is, that's normalised, that allows you to report one figure to your directors, but is actually aggregated from all the portfolio. So you could have 44,000 sites around the world, it'll report to one, but you can break down and analyse that, and you can look at region, sectoral differences. It is unlimited what you can do.
So standardisation here in terms of reporting, there's the transparency around that, and then there's a sort of like an index that people can report on and then see how they're performing. So there's a bit around performance. What do you feel, Martin?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see some legislation sort of go up and down the food chain from SMEs up to the large FTSE 100 companies, so everyone's reporting. Make it practical for people to report at a smaller level because they don't have resources to just count things. So, but at least they're reporting something, they're being true and honest. But I think it's driven through legislation. I think that's really important. I think where you've got organisations that have a social conscience. And they have a responsibility to the local community and to the community around them, that they are and they can demonstrate those credentials, that when evaluations are going on from a procurement perspective, those things are higher up the agenda than just the cost to serve. I think that's really important otherwise, and that's down to the procurement people, the clients, to make that change beyond price. We talked about education. I think using different sort of methods to educate people. We haven't talked about social media, how you can use social media to educate people. It doesn't cost a lot of money to do. We can get messages out there. I don't know what happens in schools these days about how people are educated at a certain level. So I think that those three or four areas, legislation, a different level of importance for companies that demonstrate sustainability and can add value to the client from a sustainable perspective, and education, I think, are the three things I would like to see.
Really good. Yeah, thank you.
Just to say on that point, if you get it wrong, it creates the biggest noise. If you get it right, it enhances your brand and it just sells the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think for me, it's fairly simplistic insofar as that you reward good behaviour.
Yeah.
You reward the ability to demonstrate behaviour rather than aspiration, because I sort of hark back to what I did before, which was about health and safety. We had aspirations for health and safety. Now we have to demonstrate it, and it has to be the same with the environment. You have to demonstrate it, not just have this aspirational view towards it. Strategy, no, it's not good enough. It's got to be. If you're going to be rewarded, you need to be rewarded on behaviour, not on aspiration.
Because you'll be caught out.
You can't work towards zero deaths, can you?
No.
That's the book.
Yeah.
Jackie.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what everyone's saying around this whole educational piece, but I think there's also something about the generators of that waste, so the products that we are receiving within our businesses, that there has to be something done at a much more senior level that says, I'm not buying your products anymore because I bought a TV a couple of days ago for my son and there was 5 different pieces of waste in there, and when I went down to his bin store there was only 2 options, and I'm thinking I'm going to contaminate something down here. And so it has to be that we've got to try, and whether that's more at a much more senior governmental level, is to say to the individuals, that are producing this waste, because it's giving us the problem, we need to push it back up and say, you need to reduce what you're sending out to us as well.
I really like that, because whenever I go to buy a fridge, I look at the energy efficiency rating. You've got A, or fridge a day, and I think I want to push that up as far as I can. If we had some sort of rating on products that you buy, it will, so whether it be a RAG rating or the ABCD rating, it would make me more self-conscious of what I'm buying, and think, what's the recyclability of this product, or does it come from sustainable resources? I think that would influence my style of buying, definitely.
Yeah, it's like cleaning products, isn't it? They're still providing them in plastic bottles, and therefore, are they using, more different, vacuum type packs that are better, that can be reused and retopped up? Those sort of things. Are there, the Unilevers of the world coming around with a van and saying, let's top up all of this different product that you're using on this huge site? It is about trying. That's a much bigger program, but I think it's important that we should be challenging it.
To that, and I think I would say, why would they? The Unilevers, they're trying to sell chemical, but there are solutions on the market now where you do not need to use chemicals anymore to clean buildings. So they've got no vested interest in selling those products, but we clean our buildings without chemicals. There's a way you could just. The market can resolve that problem just by simply moving away
That's
from...
That's a really powerful message, though, isn't it? As a client, you say actually chemical-free cleaning and zero impact on the environment.
It's massive, and that will force those companies to change direction.
And publicising what's
good.
So by saying to everyone, we're great, and here we're going to prove it to you
Yeah.
because of this measure and that measure. From a competition point of view, you put yourself much higher up the chain without actually having really to do anything different than you're already doing.
And it's where we should be sharing that knowledge as facilities people through facilitate through whichever means we need to really get our heads together and sharing this good practice stuff.
It comes back to education, because unless you educate people to do things in a different way, they'll just carry on doing the same thing in the same way, using the same.
And the waste hierarchy, I think, what we've seen, the evolution of the waste hierarchy, where it was a typical pyramid shape in the 1990s, and now we've inverted that, heading towards 2030. What we've got to do is prioritise elimination and reuse, not what are we stopping going to. We actually need to flip it on its head, and actually that goes to procurement, how we do things differently. But reuse platforms are actually a great procurement tool. Because in an organisation where you've got multiple desks, chairs, stationery or things like that, why would you keep buying stuff that you've already got?
Which ones do you recommend? There's a lot of reuse platforms.
I haven't used any in earnest, but I'm aware of Warpit. That's in the government's waste and resource strategy. There's GlobeChain. There's and what you actually get. The beauty of that is they account for the weight of the materials that you've reused. So not only do you not have to buy things twice, but actually you're demonstrating, and so that helps you towards zero waste, because you're not chucking out the old with the new.
Yeah, then we're going to jump in on...
I just think we need to rethink, really, before we do anything. Rethink, refuse, before you reuse. You need to put in 2 more hours in your 5 hours to recycle. Basically.
Yeah.
Just rethink, refuse before you reuse it.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Was there something about procurement that we could tackle here in specification? Or?
I think just around greater collaboration in the FM industry, because we can drive so much change. And going off what Steve was saying about rag rating, if we had real focus on all of our suppliers into our business, that would really help us reduce what's coming onto sites. Because I think there's a trick there in terms of addressing that. And if we're pressurising the suppliers to our industry to do something about it, it's certainly going to help with our overall ratings.
Yeah, yeah. So
it's interesting you say that, because I think one of the other things, I know we're sort of saying it's down to procurement and we should have more FM involved in there, and we're sort of semi-beating up procurement, but I mean they've got targets in a lot of organisations. They are measured by rebates, and that then flies in the face of all the good practice that we're trying to say here, because a rebate is then that person's only going to put it on the end of it, or they're going to stop doing something because they can't afford to work with that organisation again. And I think that again is an industry thing that we should be really talking about to try and resolve those things.
I mean, I can take anyone's annual report and I can play back to them exactly where they sit in terms of zero waste index without actually having to do any work at all. I'm just reading their report. The hard work is actually moving that dial from whether you're negative to how you get up to the 90% target. That is something that is really requires an awful lot of hard work, gathering data, changing people's minds and educating them. But the simplicity of what did you reuse, what did you recycle, what did you recover, and what did you dispose? That's all I need to actually help you to understand where you sit on the zero waste score. And then that's the start of the journey to actually heading to save the planet.
Nathan Gray, you're hired.
No bar. And actually, just this.
It's got to be the risk with the watch on.
But it's an unashamed plug. But actually, I submitted this tool that we've got to the ED leaders, and it's been shortlisted. Now, whether there was only 5 in the list anyway, I don't know. But it's part of technical innovation, so it's there. It's whether I am actually there picking up the prize. I don't care. This is actually something that helps business to actually understand where they sit now and how they can help towards 1.5 degrees.
Great. Would you like to
Yeah,
add?
just for me to summarise, I think we've talked initially, the whole concept about this is talking about carbon reduction and the climate challenges, the huge climate challenge we face at the moment, which I just hope everybody's waking up to, young, middle-aged and old alike. I hope everybody is beginning to really wake up to that, because it frightened the life out of me. But I travel the country talking to people such as yourselves all day, every day for a living. And I would like to end this from my perspective on a positive note, that I'm somewhat heartened by some of the change that I'm beginning to see. I think we can do an awful lot more, but people are beginning to change their thoughts. Organisations are beginning to change their mindsets. People are beginning to care a bit more. People are beginning to challenge a bit more. People are beginning to make change. Prime example, we're currently working with one of the leading DIY stores, at the moment, and I know for a fact they've just removed all of their polystyrene trays that carry plants in, and they've moved them to a recyclable tray. They've removed them wherever they can. Somebody even rang me to the level of detail this week. A supplier came to them and said, look, we've got a nice new shiny door handle for you, and it only costs £4.30 and you can sell it at £9.65, and isn't this fantastic? And the lady who was buying it, or was part of it, had somebody sat there from the sustainability team and said, the piece of plastic that's going around the outside of the packaging you're putting in, why is that necessary? We don't want that on our shelf. And they challenged the fact that it had a piece of Surlyn film over the top of the door handle, which meant that somebody had to peel it apart and put one piece of plastic, in theory, into one bin and a piece of cardboard into another bin. The fact of the matter is somebody at home will just tear that apart and throw the whole thing in a bin. Yeah. So I'm heartened by the fact that this is beginning slowly but surely to filter down to some of these organisations. And Nathan mentioned an organisation there called ED. Again, I'd recommend anybody, if you don't from time to time, you can't read it all the time, don't get bombarded by it, but they have a very good website which is a way of sharing best practice. If you distill down some of the things that some of the organisations are doing, some of the bigger organisations that you read about on their website, just distill it down to the level that we work at, because I don't work at some of their levels of the Unilevers of the world, and some of those companies are doing amazing things globally with water, carbon reporting and stuff. Fantastic. But we have to distill it down to the level that I work at on a daily basis. And if you do that, it's some very good stuff in there, and there's some quite good learning processes to feed yourself on that type of information. So change is happening. We've just got to help it along and speed it up, in my opinion.
On that note, because I'm with you, I'm an optimist, and I read recently that optimists live longer. So I'm now even more optimistic. Yeah. But I think it's very important that we get over this inertia. It's very important that we drive change really, really fast as we're facing this most important decade of our lives. I'd like to thank everybody for turning up this morning, and thanks for your input. I'd like to thank Reconomy for putting on this great knowledge sharing event, and with our partners at ThisWeekinFM. Most of all, thank you so much for everyone's input.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a personal thanks for your time, Thank you very much for everybody's time.
That concludes the final session of the Reconomy Don't Waste It Roundtable. This session looked at the triple bottom line: economic needs, environmental needs, and social needs. Every aspect of this triple bottom line can now be accounted for, even the social side. However, this is mostly done through reporting, which is a theme that has become common in all sessions of this roundtable. Do we need a gold standard of how the industry reports to give us the trust and transparency needed? Thank you to Reconomy for hosting a thought-provoking roundtable, which clearly identified there is a very real need for all organisations, regardless of their size, to work towards a zero waste management target, and service providers have a duty to help their clients achieve this. The 3 previous sessions are available on ThisWeekinFM's website and our YouTube channel. We hope you found this roundtable useful and informative, and more roundtables will be featured on ThisWeekinFM's website, our YouTube channel, in the very near future. Please contact us if you would like to be involved in a roundtable or any other of our events. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on ThisWeekinFM.